I'm Walter Bodmer. I'm a mixture of geneticist and cancer researcher, and I've had a long-standing interest in how you can use genetics to look at what we call the genetic structure of the population, how people differ in their genetic makeup in different parts of the world or a country. So many people, and I'm one of them, are interested in where they come from, what the differences are, what led to the structure of an existing population, and I turn that into an interest is where does the genetics come into that. The main project I'm talking about is called POBI, People of the British Isles, and it was a study to try and find out the genetic structure of the population. So we went to different parts of the country in rural areas, picking people, all four of whose grandparents came from roughly the same area, and then we took a blood sample and we analysed the DNA for these genetic markers that we call SNPs, and you can get 500,000 of them for each person. And then you can say, if you take any two people, how similar are they with respect to those genetic differences? And not only the differences, but whether genetic differences that are close together on the chromosomes are more likely to be the same than not. And when you use quite sophisticated statistical approaches, you can then cluster people and say, here's a group of people who are more similar to each other within the group than they are to anyone not in the group. And then you can go and say, what's the next largest cluster? And that way, we eventually came up with 17 clusters that were of reasonable size. And all of that was done purely with the genetics. And then we said, where do those people come from? So we mapped the clusters on the map of the British Isles, and using a different symbol, a single symbol for each person, but a different type of symbol according to the genetic cluster, a big red square, a purple circle, and so on. The biggest surprise is that we could take people who were matched by their genetics, and they tended to live in the same place. Now, we expected that to some extent, but we certainly didn't expect it even to separate Devon and Cornwall, and very strikingly separate North and South Wales from. It first of all says that they don't move around all that much, otherwise we wouldn't see that stability of structure. It also tells us, in a way, with subsequent, we then said, well, how do these structures relate to where the people might have come from in different parts of Europe? And so we had European data like that, so we could say, how do the British clusters match up by combinations of the European clusters? And that would tell us that, for instance, the Welsh are very different. They have mainly things that come from northern France and West Germany and areas like that. And that all the makeup of the British is very much dependent, if you just match it to the current populations around the British Isles, the immediately closest coastal areas. So that tells us something about where they might have come from in it, and relates it to the history. So Orcadians, people from Orkney, are the most different from everyone else. And why? They had a Norse kingdom for 500 years, and that's the effect of the Viking incursions. But they still have only about 25% evidence of that admixture. So the Vikings came, but they also intermarried. And that's true of the Anglo-Saxons as well.